All right, my name is John Freeman, and my informative speech is about evolution. So ever since I was little, I've always been interested in how things work and why things happen and everything, and that has naturally led me to a scientific mindset and trying to figure out why everything occurs and happens. And I just feel that evolution is a very interesting topic, and it impacts every living creature on this planet. So can I get a raise of hands of how many people understand and endorse evolution? All right, a little bit more than half, maybe. Okay. Okay, so the reality of evolution is indisputable, and based on current scientific evidence, everybody should accept it as fact, yet only 41 of adults in the United States accept it as fact. So that is under half of all adults in the United States, which is quite a large amount if you think about it, and should change because evolution affects everybody. So a little background on evolution. In the mid-1800s, Charles Darwin went out to the Galapagos Islands, which are a series of islands off the coast of South America. And what is different about the Galapagos is that the islands are spaced out so that animals have been separated geographically from each other, so they have evolved independently. So different subspecies have emerged from this, and Darwin had his finches, and they have adapted to the different islands by having different sets of beaks, and these beaks have been adapted to eat different sources of food, such as nuts or cacti or bugs. So if you look at this, you can see the differences in the beaks. So, and then in 1859, Darwin published The Origin of Species, and this stated two things about evolution. All living things constantly change to better adapt to their environment, which is known as evolution. And then second, all living things on Earth are related in a single evolutionary tree, which is a common descent, so everything can be connected in one tree of life. So this image is of giraffes evolving to have longer necks through natural selection as the grasses of the Sahara, wherever they live, start to disappear. They can only eat trees, so those with the longer necks are able to reach the leaves, so they adapt and evolve, while the ones with the shorter necks die out, so their genes are not passed down. And then that's a simplified tree of life. So in Darwin's time, they could only use the phenotypic examples to compare living things. So embryology, they could look at the physical embryos of living things and compare them. And in the early stages of development, every creature goes through the basic steps of single cell, multi-cell, and then it's only later on in the stages they start to build their defining characteristics where they actually start to look different. So at the beginning stages, a human and a lamb look very similar in the womb. So people came to the conclusion that they must be similar somehow. And then homologous structures were also able to be studied with the similar bone structure in all animals on the, I forget what the term is, but birds and dolphins and mammals and everything, and reptiles have the similar bone structure in the arms. They all have the same bone structure, so that was another example. But today we can actually look inside the DNA and compare those structures, which is a lot better than just looking at, exterior things. So we can actually go in, and this is a study of subspecies of butterfly that has a specific sensor that is special to that subspecies, and the only other time it has been cataloged is in fruit flies to this extent, so it's a pretty cool study because they went in, and there's a lot of subspecies of this butterfly that can interbreed, but then there's even more species that can't, as demonstrated by that diagram. And this is like the different colors of the subspecies that can interbreed, and then the ones that are connected can't and stuff. I just use this as to show that we can now go in and look at the DNA and actually use it to catalog this stuff. Unlike in Darwin's time when they couldn't do this because they didn't have the technology. And with the ability to catalog the DNA and find the similarities, we have been able to make a pretty in-depth tree of life going all the way back to the origin, and we can see that everything can be connected through this tree of life. Okay, and this is the video. I have to go. Are the speakers working? Or no?
You might have to turn it up on the side.
Okay.
Look at another mystery, this time from the world of medicine. Where did HIV come from? HIV is a deadly virus which seemed to have popped into existence in the early 1980s. The Center for Disease Control conducted a study which placed one man at the center of the epidemic. This man, a French-Canadian flight attendant, came to be known as Patient Zero and was quickly blamed by the public for starting the disease. Biologists, however, suspected that Patient Zero was not actually the first person to get HIV. To confirm their suspicions and find the true origins of the virus, they turned to Charles Darwin's idea that all living things are related. Scientists collected samples of HIV from multiple patients in the US and found that there were several slightly different versions being passed around. They analyzed the genetic code of each version and began to build Darwinian evolutionary trees for the virus. They built their trees using the same methods that other geneticists use to make evolutionary trees of plants and animals. In addition to simply creating these trees, they were also able to examine the genetic differences between strains of HIV and compare those differences to HIV's estimated mutation rate. Doing this, they got a rough idea of the year at which different strains evolved away from each other. Their results suggest that HIV had been evolving in America before Patient Zero could have ever been infected. Early on, scientists came up with multiple trees which could not be easily linked together. Evolutionary theory tells us there should only be one tree. If we can't link branches together, there must be missing links. On a quest to find those missing links and the true origins of HIV, biologists traveled the globe searching for viruses inside of humans and animals. Different strains of HIV were found in people all around the world. Scientists even looked at tissue samples from the past, which doctors had collected and preserved from patients who died strange deaths. Primitive versions of HIV were found in several human samples and added to the tree, connecting many loose branches. Viruses which were similar to HIV were also found in populations of monkeys and apes. For the most part, these viruses could not infect humans, but researchers began making family trees for these viruses as well, hoping they might eventually find a connection. Dr. Beatrice Hahn, while studying stool samples from wild chimps in Central Africa, found a strain of chimp virus which was almost identical to a human strain also found in Africa. She had discovered a missing link. It told us that HIV did not come from a French-Canadian flight attendant in the early 1980s, but instead came from chimpanzees, possibly as early as the year 1900. The leading hypothesis is that a hunter in southeast Cameroon first got the disease by accidentally cutting himself while preparing the meat of an infected chimp. Understanding that HIV spilled over from animals to people allows us to better understand how the virus works and is helping us prevent new diseases from spilling over in the future. In our final example, we'll see how evolution applies.
So this was a video talking about the practical applications of evolution in the real world. And I couldn't cover all 3 examples in the video, but I covered the one that I felt was the most important, which was the medical application, which was the discovery of where HIV came from. And the video did a pretty good job of explaining it and how they used the theory that everything is connected to find where the actual HIV came from. And now we could be more precautious in the future so we don't have a situation like this happen again. And yeah. So to conclude, I feel that evolution is a very important topic in the real world, in reality, and that if this intrigued anybody in here at all, that you do a little bit more research and look into it, because it applies to everybody's life and it's pretty cool.